All right, my friends, back to my UFO UAP study guide, a handbook for first contact. Um, we're at section 5, I believe. So, chapter 5 has 5 sections, the most so far. And I think that's because a lot had to be said as a disclaimer, and a lot of fairly complicated, sophisticated ideas had to be discussed and still have to be discussed. But cattle mutilations and human damage, um, that's an area that shows behavior that is not so benign, but could be interpreted as malignant. Cattle mutilations is certainly hostile. It's a form of theft, and it may involve inhumane slaughter. There is no evidence of standard humane slaughter. If they wanted this, they could have just as easily paid for it, made an arrangement, or left it if they were cognizant of that idea. Um, there is a lot of talk. What if the government is behind cattle mutilations and they're secretly doing it to, I don't know, test levels of toxins, mutations, whatever? I think this is a less credible idea. It's kind of a bad idea because the government has the means to buy cattle or raise it by themselves or contract it out without drawing so much darned attention. If it's a covert secret operation, it's one of the dumber ones. It's also why I think that, you talk about, could the stuff happening around nuclear bases, military assets, and so on. Military people testing out new stealth technology, drone technology, spoofing armed forces personnel. And the truth is, that's really bad secrecy. What kind of a secret program purposely goes out to draw that much attention to itself, parading itself around some of the most sophisticated detection equipment in the world, and then allowing it to turn into a media shitstorm? Makes no sense. Okay, UAP capabilities make abduction easy. That is one thing that I think is a strong evidence for that supports abductions and personal contacts and possibly mutilations, which is that the observable, recorded, and verified aerial activity would make stuff like this incredibly easy. If what you wanted to do was kidnap someone and examine them and possibly put them in a breeding program, you would need something like this. It would be hard to do with just Black Hawk helicopters and things like that. Actually, pretty impossible when you consider that everybody has internet. Homeless people have internet and phones and things like that. So, but I'm going to say that if someone is abducted against their will, it's an act of hostility. If someone, I don't care, like, if they were to kidnap me and put me on a spacecraft and a bunch of tall Nordics, I happen to like blondes, right? Although I don't mind other women, I think they're quite fetching. But I mean, if they said, here's a beautiful, kind of unearthly looking, tall, blonde woman, and I want you to mate with her, I mean, I might kind of be down with it, but then it's like, what happens to the child? You mean I don't get to know? Um, what if I say no? What if I say not right now? I mean, will some action be taken? I've read reports where this activity allegedly happened and the person felt that somehow telepathically he or she was being manipulated to be accepting of this thing. So that would be coercion at best, rape at worst, and again a hostile act, a criminal act, which means that either these things know what they're doing is considered to be wrong by us and they're doing it anyway because What, they don't care? Or they're not aware? But how could they not be aware and do this at the same time and study us and interact with us for so long? And what's happening may not even be a study. It may be something else, because generally studies don't last across centuries and decades and centuries like this. So if there is an unreleased governmental database, this is all a war crime. And if the government is covering it up, then the government is in collusion with this or participating in a war crime. Do you see why we need to look into this topic? If all these people, quite a few of them, appear to be traumatized and affected by these things, it puts some in a negative spiral, which brings them no profit. They're not selling their story to tabloids for millions and millions. That is one thing that does support this and kind of draws my heart and my mind closer to accepting that topic. But that aside, if it is happening, if the government knows what's happening and they're not informing us and they're not coming up with a plan to stop this, prevent this, it's collusion and someone should be held responsible. Secrecy is good for some things, but there is a point when it becomes harmful, and we don't want secrecy in our government to high degrees. We want transparency. Yes, there are certain things that should be classified, but should entire branches of government be classified? Should something that allegedly affects thousands of living people that come forth with this and are often ridiculed and mocked and keep their story? I mean, if this is some type of psychological phenomenon and the government has data on it and it's all a delusion, then they should give it to the scientific community, and the scientific community can say, oh, there's a type of mental condition we never knew about, and we have a way of helping these people. If it's a delusion, we should cure the delusion. If it's an actual phenomena happening like this, we should know about it and we should be able to act. Damn it. Okay. And the added factor is that there are multiple written corroborated accounts of UFO, UAP activity causing radiation sickness and physical damage, and at least one death. That was more early on in the phenomenon. And again, it appears to be of a nature that is not intentional, but incidental, and oftentimes brought on by the observer by getting too close or by perhaps violating a certain boundary with this object or these objects and whatever the heck they are. All right? And again, that's a hazard. If this is happening repeatedly, if those 200 plus encounters with the Navy all have the potential for radiation damage to those involved, and no one's and the government knows about it and has records, and no one's doing anything about it, and the scientific and medical community is not able to investigate and use their best and brightest minds with the best equipment, with adequate funding to come up with interventions for this, that is negligence at the least, collusion at the most, and a war crime. So disclosure is starting to happen. It's already begun. It's up to us to force the issue. Freedom of Information Acts are a tool that have been used. I think Jeremy Corbell had some success with this, and other individuals. I think we all need to get together. We need to talk to our elected officials to the point where, again, Democrat, Republican, Independent, talk to your candidates about it over and over. Get petitions, get coalitions. Y'all can meet for a bunch of things. People meet for brunch. People meet for football games. Why not throw a party now and then based on the topic, and watch a couple movies and documentaries, have a couple drinks, have some snacks, games for the kids, and talk about it, and come up with plans to communicate with people about it and normalize it. You understand? Ultimately, we have the power to advance this and find out, dude, and dudettes, if this abduction stuff is real, like as real as people say it is, I want to know, even if knowing hurts. You get no power, no freedom, no safety in ignorance and in willful ignorance. The reason why they talk about an ostrich with its head in the sand, it's not real. You know why it's real? Because no creature can survive danger that way. If there was a creature that did that, leaving itself vulnerable, blind, deaf, its ass sticking in the air, it would be eaten by every predator there is. Right? Don't be that way. My friends, this concludes chapter 5. There's 9 chapters. We are past the halfway mark. It is 19th of May 2024, 5:27 p.m. And I wish you a good night. If you have questions, if you have verifiable, strong data you can point me towards, if you want to network on this and communicate and form a coalition, a club, whatever on this, talk to me, communicate with me and each other respectfully and nicely, like adults. This topic deserves proper scrutiny, okay, and a proper discussion, and I hope we get somewhere, and I hope this helps. Y'all have a good night.